Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and when I first started running a mastermind, I made a huge mistake. And looking back, it's almost funny because I should have seen it coming. I invest a lot of money in high-level events and masterminds myself. And being in these rooms with incredible people, and almost every single time at the end of these experiences, I come away with the same thought. This was great, but I wish I had more time to connect with the people in the room. It's ironic in some ways because I love great speakers. I am a speaker. I teach speakers, but I've always found that the real magic in these events doesn't come from the stage. It comes from the people in the room. And yet when I launched my own mastermind, which is really a format for allowing people to connect with each other, I completely ignored that. I treated it exactly like my high-level one-on-one coaching program, which I put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver great value. I do a lot of thinking for my clients in my one-on-one program because they're very time poor and they need results quickly. And so I put all of the pressure on myself to deliver every breakthrough, create all of the value, and I had to prove that I was worth it. And I see now that this is a huge mistake. And it's not just happening in masterminds. At the time, it felt like the right thing to do. But I built my career around helping people refine their message, build powerful talks, and create real transformation. And it made sense that I should be the one guiding the mastermind members through every step of this process. But then something happened that completely shifted my perspective, which is also one of the most magical things about the environment of a mastermind. You see, after our first deep dive workshop, one of the members reached out to me with some feedback that really hit me hard. He said, "You're amazing at what we do. We all know you're the best storyteller in the room, but I think we'd all get more value if you would take a step back and give the group more space to connect." Now, at first, I'll be honest, it was difficult to hear this. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm giving you everything here. I'm literally laying out my best frameworks, my best teaching. I've worked so hard to make this mastermind incredible and to guide you through a process that's going to make it worth for you. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized he was absolutely right. I was holding on too tightly, too focused on performing, too focused on leading, and almost forcing the transformation myself. And that's when I really saw it. The way that I was facilitating was actually limiting the group. So in our next session, I did something different. I challenged myself to pause before jumping in, and I let everybody know that we are all going to be teaching each other more than in the last one. At one point, one of the members shared a new idea that they were running through in their talk. And immediately I had feedback, I had ideas, insights, suggestions. I knew exactly what I wanted to say to help refine it. But instead of jumping in, I stopped, I took a breath, and I waited. And in that silence, a little bit longer than was comfortable for me, something incredible happened. Other members started chiming in. They gave feedback. They challenged each other's ideas. They expanded on the teaching points that I had introduced and made them even stronger. And I realized I wasn't just delivering the value anymore. I had built something bigger than myself. And the real power of a mastermind isn't just the knowledge and expertise of a facilitator. It's the collective intelligence of the group. And here's the crazy part. I said this earlier, this isn't just a mastermind issue. This same mistake happens all of the time on stage with speakers, thought leaders, and content creators. And that's what I'm going to dig into next. The realization I had in the mastermind is also something that I see in how I view speaking and content creation. This same mistake is happening on stages all of the time. Speakers and thought leaders, people who are incredibly smart, accomplished, and successful, get up in front of the audience and they make the same error I did in my mastermind. They try too hard to perform, which sounds like they cram their talk with as much value as possible, thinking the audience just wants the information. They dominate the stage and every moment on it, talking at the audience instead of creating an experience with them. They over-deliver because deep down, they feel like they have to prove that they belong on the stage. And I get it, because I've done this too. I've worked with so many speakers who come to me feeling frustrated because they've poured everything into their talk and it still falls flat. And when we break it down, the problem is almost always the same with everyone I work with. They aren't actually delivering the transformation the audience needs. They're focused on themselves and they're just trying to prove how much they know. And this is the same problem that I had in my mastermind. It wasn't that I was doing a bad job and it wasn't that I didn't care. It was that I was trying too hard to be the source of all of the value instead of trusting the magic that would come from the group. And for the speakers, the magic comes from the audience, not from how much you teach them, not from how much you impress them, but from how much you connect with them. Which brings us to the real issue behind all of this. Are you performing to serve or to just validate yourself? Because here's a hard truth. It took me way too long to realize. A lot of us, whether we're speaking on stage, creating content, or leading a mastermind, aren't actually delivering value for the audience. We're performing to validate ourselves. And I say this with love, because if you haven't heard by now, I've done this too, both on stage and on masterminds and everywhere else I've had the opportunity to make the mistake. So think about it. Have you ever stepped onto a stage, looked at the audience, and felt that little voice in your head whisper, I need to prove that I belong here. I need to make sure that they get their money's worth or they get value from what I have to say. I need to show them how smart and prepared I am. And what happens? We start fire hosing the audience with information. We start over-explaining everything to make sure they get it. We start talking faster because we think, oh my God, I have so much to say and not enough time. And then suddenly, instead of creating real transformation, we're just trying to convince the audience that we're good enough to be on the stage. And that's the biggest mistake you can make, because the audience, they don't need you to prove anything to them. They don't need you to lead them. They need you to create an experience where they feel something, see something, and shift something in themselves. And for that to happen, they need to trust that you are enough. And that's exactly what I had to learn in my mastermind. I had to trust that the value wasn't just in me. It was in the group. It was in the space that I created. It was in the process of letting them step up. And for speakers, the same thing is true. The value isn't just in what you say. It's in how you create a space for your audience to have their own experience, their own realizations, their own transformations. And that's when you become truly powerful on stage. So how do we actually make this shift? The answer isn't to deliver more value or teach more. What should we be doing instead? The shift is simple but powerful. Instead of trying to be the value, create the space for the value to emerge. And here's what's key. It's not about stepping back completely. It's about setting the right structure, giving the right tools, and designing a forcing function that keeps the people moving forward. And this is exactly what I did in my mastermind. I didn't just let go and hope for the best. I built a clear framework, a shared language, and a deadline that drives real progress. So here's how I designed my mastermind for maximum impact. First, I have a document called the High Converting Talk Map, which is a line-by-line blueprint that creates a talk that isn't just polished, but it's steeped in conversion. It moves the audience to action, which became a shared foundation. Everybody uses the same talk map and can see and understand the series of statements and frameworks that everyone else is building. So everybody can speak into each other's message in much more common and effective way. Each of the monthly deep dive workshops that I host throughout this mastermind have a specific theme. So instead of overwhelming my members with everything at once, each one has a specific goal, from building authority stories. How do we structure and strategize our teaching points? And how do we craft powerful offers? That means that even though I'm doing less teaching myself, everyone is still showing up with the right focus and the right intention. And finally, the forcing function, which is a live retreat that I will have at the end of the mastermind, where every single person will get an opportunity to deliver a 30-minute version of their talk in front of a small audience and have it recorded. And because I know this retreat is on the horizon, without a doubt, every single person is going to complete their talk, because they aren't just working on it. They have a clear deadline, a real audience, and a powerful reason to finish. And this is the beauty of a well-designed mastermind. It's not about me pushing every step. It's about the container pulling them forward. And the same principle applies to speakers and thought leaders. So most speakers, like I've said before, fall into the trap of over-delivering, cramming their talk with too much content and trying to prove their expertise and leaving their audience overwhelmed instead of transformed. But the best speakers do something different. They speak less, but land harder. They focus on one powerful idea at a time instead of trying to teach everything they know. They pause and give their audience time to process instead of filling every single second with words. And they set the right structure for engagement, whether it's through interactive storytelling, reflective questions, or the right key frameworks that they're showcasing. They create a container where the audience naturally connects with and applies the message. It's not about delivering more. It's about creating an experience where the audience can step into their own transformation, come to their own conclusions. And this is what I've learned inside of my mastermind. And that's what the best speakers and thought leaders do when they are on stage. And that's what I want you to start thinking about. Where in your work are you still trying to own every insight instead of creating the right space for transformation? Because that's where your real power lies. So here's what I've learned from all of this. The most valuable thing that I've created in my mastermind wasn't my knowledge, wasn't my frameworks, wasn't my insights, as much as I would like them to be. It was about creating the space for my people to rise. And as a speaker and a facilitator and a leader, that's your job too. It's not about how much you say. It's about how much you allow to happen in the space that you create. And if you trust that, your impact will grow. Your message will land deeper. Your audience will actually experience the transformation and not just hear about it. So let me ask you this. Where in your speaking, your coaching, your leadership, are you still trying to prove yourself instead of creating the space for true impact? Because if you feel like you're over-delivering, if you feel like you have to perform to be valuable, that is your signal to step back and trust. And if you would like to experience this firsthand, whether as a speaker or a member of my mastermind, to have the right structure, the right frameworks, and the right community to help you refine and own your message, then please let me know. This isn't the first mastermind I'll be hosting, and there are many more opportunities to connect and grow together. So please find me at thestoryengine.co or on social media, and we can talk about having you as the next member of the mastermind. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please rate and review this anywhere where you listen to your podcasts, or like and subscribe if you're watching the video. And we will see you on the next Story Engine podcast.